Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya Yato Anvayadi Taratascha Artheshu Abhigyaswarat Tene Brahmahridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yat Surayah Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Swena Sada Nirastakohakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukad Amritadrava Sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. So we now enter the 24th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are now entering a series of chapters on the most famous Govardhan Leela. Govardhan is the name of a sacred mountain in the region of Vrindavan, which is revered till date, and there is a beautiful Govardhan puja done around Diwali time, and this whole pastime of Govardhan Leela is the reason why Govardhan is so revered. So we are entering that Govardhan Leela in this set of chapters. So it begins with Shuka Brahma Rishi narrating that one day Krishna along with Baladeva, but that is Balaram, saw that there was a lot of preparations going on for the worship of Indra. Indra, as we know, is the demigod of rain. So Krishna knew exactly why all these preparations for worship is going on, being the all-knower, but he inquired very humbly the elderly people headed by Nanda. It says that Abhignyo api Bhagavan Sarvatma Sarvadarshanaha Prashrayavan Ato Aprichad Vriddhan Nanda Purogaman. So that Abhignyo api, Abhignya means the one who is fully aware. So every day when we invoke Bhagavatam, the very first verse of Bhagavatam says, Janmadhyasya yato anvayadi taratascha arteshu abhignya swarat. So abhignya swarat is the nature of pure supreme being, the one who is totally independent, swarat, and abhignya, one who is aware of everything, being the indwelling awareness, one who is aware of everything is abhignya. So that is the description of Krishna in the very first verse of Bhagavatam, and that is what is used here as well. Tad abhignyo api Bhagavan sarvatma sarvadarshanaha. Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, who is abhignya, who knows everything, sarvatma, who is the self of all, sarvadarshanaha, who sees everything. Yet he inquired, in keeping with the protocol, he inquired with humility his father and all the elders as follows. He told them, please point out to me, Father, what is this all this flutter? We see all this hullabaloo about some preparations going on, some sacrifice seems to be being prepared for. What is all this happening for? What is the fruit of it? For whom it is intended? What materials are being used? Please tell me everything. He says, Katyatam me pitah koyam sambhramova upagatah kim phalam kasya cha uddeshah kenava sadhyate makah. He says, what is the phalam? What is the fruit we are aspiring for with this sacrifice? What are the various articles you are using for the sacrifice? And what is the purpose of the sacrifice? Please tell me. I am eager to know. And you also, Krishna here says that though he is a young boy and the elders are arranging for this, he says very humbly and very clearly that pious souls always reveal the right purpose without keeping anything secret. So he says very beautifully to Nanda, O Father, as you know well, the pious ones, they always treat everyone first of all the same. They don't have any friend or enemy or even neutral. They see everyone as the same and they therefore keep nothing as secret. And even at worst, even if I am seen only as a friend, still it is only appropriate that the secret is shared with me because I am the son of you and I am very much interested in knowing what is this tradition we are following. So Krishna beautifully says that in either case, even if you are situated in the position of seeing everyone as same without any distinction between friend and foe, or if you simply see me as your son, as a dear friend, either way, it is good if you can just let me know what's going on, because Krishna says very clearly. So there are occasions when Krishna reveals his clear authority that even the elders have to listen with respect. So Krishna says with clarity here, first, why it is necessary for Nanda and the elders to share. And this is a lesson for everyone as well. Even if we are being asked by children questions, we should not ignore those questions. We should respect those questions and we should answer them, because oftentimes the questions asked by children are very precise and very beautiful, and it makes us realize sometimes our own hidden motives and so on. So that's why Krishna says, please tell me, because I'm asking, I need to know as your son. Even if you see everyone as the same, then it's good that you can tell me. If you simply see me as your well-wisher, still you can tell me, because Krishna says actions have to be done clearly. This is a very beautiful instruction. Krishna says people do actions in two ways. Either they do mechanically or they do deliberately with thoughtful clarity. And those who do with deliberate, thoughtful clarity, more often than not, achieve their results, achieve success. And the ones who do mechanically, ritualistically, do not. Krishna says, Jnatva ajnatva cha karmani janoyam anutishtati vidusha karma siddhi syat tatha na avidusho bhavet. So the ones who know and do, ones who are aware of the intent behind the actions, they are very deliberate, very aware, very clear, purposeful, they achieve the results most often. Whereas the ones who are unclear, mechanical, simply following because somebody said this is to be done without understanding the reason, they don't really attain the results. And therefore, Krishna says, what is this ritual that you are performing? And what is the purpose of it? Does it follow the simply the course of the world? Is it simply being mechanically done as a ritual, or have you thought through it? So when this question is posed to Nanda, Nanda of course answers. Nanda, the father, is of course a very elevated being. We saw that all the cowherd residents, and especially Nanda and Yashoda, are all elevated beings, and that is why they have been given the great blessing of being the parents and the friends and the beloved of Krishna. So Nanda, of course, speaks very beautifully. He says, Indra, O Krishna, Indra is the demigod of rain. He is the devata for rain, and he sends rain through clouds, and that cloud brings us water, and water, as you know, is the life of all living entities. So this is obviously very logical, because even now when we are looking for any other planet to inhabit, the first thing we look for is water. So that is why in Mars also there is the search for water and so on, because without water there cannot be no life form. So Nanda says Indra gives water, and therefore he is the one who sustains life, and therefore we worship him as the almighty ruler of the clouds, and we offer the sacrificial performance to please Indra, and we whatever we offer is produced by what he has sent us only, because he sends us rain, and through the rain we have been able to raise our cattle, and we have been able to do agriculture. So we have dairy products, we have farm products. All of this is only because of the rainwater. So we offer it back to him out of gratitude, and thereby we are able to attain the threefold merit of dharma, artha, and kama, that is religious merit and wealth and sense enjoyment in the rightful way, because it is Indra who yields the fruit of agriculture, who gives us rain. So this is the logic of Nanda. And finally he also says, this is also a tradition. We have this tradition, paramparya. We have been doing it for generations. And one ought to not abruptly stop a tradition that has been handed down from generation to generation, simply whimsically, either because of reasons of laziness or pleasure or greed or prejudice. One ought not to stop a tradition that has been coming from generation to generation. He says, Ya evam visruje dharmam paramparya narah kama lobhat bhayad dveshad savai na apnoti shobhanam. He says, if one stops a tradition coming for many generations because of his own whimsical desire or greed or laziness or hatred or prejudice, then that is not appropriate. So, what Nanda says seems very logical, but the most important point that is to be noted is Indra is a demigod, that is, he is not the supreme being. In normal terms, it can be seen as someone who is vested with power by the supreme ruler. So, if there is an emperor and he has vested an authority of his domain to handle a particular department, then it seems that the head of the department has all the power to manage that particular department, and yet his very power comes forth from the emperor or from the president or whatever. So, in a similar way, though all examples are imperfect, one can get a sense of it that any demigod who is responsible for a particular aspect of nature is only getting that power from the supreme being. So, when we have the supreme source, which is pure consciousness, which is Bhagavan, which is Brahman, from whom comes forth this Shakti called Prakriti, this material energy which makes everything possible through the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And that manifests as various entities, and some of them are powerful entities who are able to manage various aspects of nature, let's say. So, even those powerful entities are ultimately getting their power only from the one source. So, this is the point that is missed by many who worship demigods without recognizing the supreme source. So, that is what Nanda is saying here. And Nanda also makes this case about not stopping something that's coming from generation to generation whimsically. He's right there in the sense that one cannot abruptly stop something that's been coming from many generations, because there is a lot of wisdom in the ancient traditions that have handed down through various generations. But at the same time, it's important to also question it and understand the motive behind it. If we do it mechanically just because it's been handed down, then we don't even gain anything out of it. But if we simply abruptly stop it, also it's not right. It's good to understand it, and if it still makes sense, because certain things are done for a particular time and place and they may not be relevant anymore, and then it can be stopped with the understanding and not whimsically, and certain things may still make sense to continue. So either way, understanding is important. So this is why what Nanda says is partially right, that it cannot be whimsically stopped, but it has to be understood. And that's what Krishna said. Why are you doing it? Have you understood the purpose of it? So this is what Nanda replied by saying, we are just doing because one, Indra is the demigod who gives rain, and two, this has been done for many generations. So now Krishna rebuts that entirely in a very surprising way. Krishna is partly doing it to elicit a reaction from Indra, because this is all a pastime that Krishna is doing in order to provoke Indra, in order to teach him a lesson. It is also to create a wonderful pastime with Govardhana, which makes Govardhana sacred for ever to come. And it is also in the process to teach everyone that there is no need to worship various demigods. There is only one supreme being. So many things are accomplished by Krishna's activities as always. So here it says Krishna, hearing Nanda's response, he rebuts it in a way that is going to provoke the anger of Indra. It says, Vacho nishamya nandasya tata anyesham vrijaukasam indraya manyum janayan pitaram praha Keshava. Keshava, that is the Supreme Lord, spoke in a way to provoke Indra while also countering Nanda here, his father. So he says, first of all, O father, we have to recognize that it is the force of karma which is the source of all actions. So the creature is born by the force of karma, he is sustained by his force of karma, he dies by the force of karma, and he is subject to fear and security only by the force of karma. He says, Karmana jayate jantuhu karmaneva viliyate sukham dukkham bayam kshemam karmaneva abhipadhyate. So he says, karma, the action that one does, is what makes one reap the results. Whatever actions one does makes one be born because of the past actions of past life. It makes one go through certain experiences, and it makes one die at a particular time. And Krishna also adds that even if there is a supreme controller of this karma, he can only ordain according to the actions of the doer and not whimsically. So, this is true in one sense, but Krishna is intentionally making this in a mischievous way, because karma by itself is what is called as insentient jada. So, it says karma is the whole notion of cause and effect, and this cause and effect is happening as ordained by this prakriti, this energy, the material energy of the supreme being. So the material energy called Ishvara, this Ishvara alone ordains the cause and effect relationship, and the cause and effect relationship therefore is always subject to the way everything is ordained by the Ishvara. It's not the other way around, where the cause and effect binds Ishvara, but it is Ishvara who ordains cause and effect. So Krishna says here that it is karma which determines the cause and the effect, and therefore the Ishvara also has to go only by that. Here it's intentionally mischievous, because what Krishna wants to drive at is essentially stop the sacrifice, thereby to provoke Indra and thereby to teach a lesson. So he says, as if there is no will of the supreme Ishvara, but everything is determined by karma, which is only partially true. But then he says very pointedly that what can Indra do when created beings are doing their actions appropriately, because he is also going to helplessly do what he is meant to do. So this is true because Indra is also acting as ordained. He is not independent, which is to say, all forces of nature are acting as ordained. And it is wrong to think that we can please forces of nature and thereby we can get favors from them. Everyone is acting only accordingly as ordained. So what is most important is to act intelligently, honoring nature. We don't have to please nature through worshipping nature and so on, which only results in what's called as paganism. We simply have to honor nature while recognizing the one source that underlies all of nature. So that is the highest order principle of Bhagavatam. And therefore, Krishna says Indra has no independence. He is simply another created being who is acting according to his nature, and everyone is acting according to their nature. And therefore, it is only the nature that acts, not the actual individual entity as we imagine it to be. So, Krishna says here in this verse, he says, स्वभावतंत्रो हि जनः स्वभावम अनुवर्तते स्वभावस्तम idam sarvam sadeva asura manusham. Whether it is a demigod, whether it is a demon, whether it is a human being, everybody has their own nature, swabhava, and swabhavastu vartate. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the same thing, swabhavastu vartate, because swabhava means nature, and each one has one's own nature. Just as there is the nature of the whole universe, there is the individual nature as well. And that nature is a mixture of the three gunas, just as the universal nature also is sattva, rajas, and tamas. And everybody has a particular constitution. The body has a particular constitution. That is why some people put on weight even without eating anything. Some people can't put on weight even if they eat a lot, because the body constitution has its own nature. Same with the mind. Some people think a lot and they worry a lot. Some people are very lazy and they don't bother with anything. So there is also a constitutional nature of the mind. So that is why Krishna says there is the nature. The only thing we can recognize is there is no me who is the owner of these activities. There is only the nature that's acting, and when we recognize it, then everything falls in its right place. Everything has its place, and therefore things go in the right cycle. So here Krishna says that's why that nature is what determines actions, whether it be for Indra, whether it be for all of us, whether it be for anyone. And therefore everyone is acting according to this force of nature which is determined by karma. And karma alone therefore appears as friend, enemy, neutral. It is alone appearing in every form. So all we have to do is stick to our dharma, our karma. So Krishna says everybody has their karma, which is determined by varna and ashrama. So we have seen this in Bhagavatam before too. A detailed description of varna and ashrama by Narada in the 7th Skandha. Varna means the 4 frequencies of people or the 4 types of people, which is determined by one's nature. Again, it is not determined by birth, though it may play a role, but it is primarily determined by one's nature and one's qualities. So, if one is inclined towards learning, that is the Brahmana nature. One is inclined towards administration and being a warrior, that's Kshatriya nature. If one's inclined towards business and agriculture and so on, that's Vaishya nature. And if one's inclined towards service, that's Shudra nature. And similarly, there is the ashrama or the stage of life, which is the student stage, the householder stage, the retired stage, and the recluse stage. So Krishna says, according to one's frequency of type, that is the 4 types, and the ashrama, the stage of life, one has to determine what's one's duty and do it properly. And there is no need to depend on any demigod and worship them if we do our duty properly. So, Brahmana should properly live by teaching and learning and so on. A Kshatriya should live by protecting others, by protecting land, by ruling properly. A Vaishya should rule according to his profession, and a Shudra should live according to service. And then specifically, Krishna says, because we are Vaishya, so Krishna is born in this, or he is raised rather by Nanda and Yashoda, who are Vaishyas. And therefore, Krishna says, since we are in the Vaishya clan, that is the ones who are inclined towards business, we are normally given 4 types of activities. One is agriculture, the other is commerce, the other is cow protection, that is also a form of agriculture, cattle, and the 4th is lending money and so on. Out of that, we are specifically in the job of handling cattle, because that's what we see all the time Krishna doing, taking cows, first calves and then cows to pasture. So there's a lot of cows and they take them, and that's their primary way of livelihood. They have a lot of milk, and the cows are used for getting milk, and that milk and the milk products is what they live by. And therefore Krishna says all we need to do is focus on our particular dharma. In our dharma happens to be cow protection and cow rearing and handling cattle and farming, cattle farming and getting milk products and so on. So Krishna says if we do this karma properly, we don't have to worship any demigod, because you have to know that it is sattva, rajas and tamas, which is the cause of continuance, appearance and dissolution of the universe. And therefore we don't have to bother with specific entities and try to please them and worship them and so on. He says sattvam rajas tama iti sthiti utpatti anta hetavah. So the for sustenance, creation, sustenance and dissolution are happening through these 3 gunas, and impelled by these gunas alone activities happen. Impelled by these gunas alone forces of nature act. Therefore impelled by these gunas alone Indra is made to pour rain out. So what is the agency here of Indra? He says Mahendra kim karishyati. He says what can Mahendra do that is outside of his nature? Just as the nature of every entity is particularly determined, the nature of Indra is to pour rain at the right time, and therefore why should we bother worshipping him as long as we do our duty correctly? So Krishna makes a very powerful argument. Only thing he doesn't say, which will be revealed later, is the recognition that there is the underlying supreme being who is the source of all these actions. So if one simply says one can just worship action and be focused on action, then it can be only a partial realization, because if one focuses on swadharma, recognizing one's dharma and thereby recognizing one's action and engage in one's action, one can get caught in the expectation of the results of the action until one recognizes that the very results are as ordained by the supreme intelligence of the cosmic being. And therefore to recognize and thereby not claim any ownership of the results, but only do the duty is the essence of karma yoga. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that's why karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. One has to worship one's duty but not expect any results as if it's one's right. One has to instead accept whatever results come. So here Krishna says only the first part. He says one has to do one's duty properly, but he doesn't reveal the second part, which is to accept the results whatever it comes, because that comes later during the Govardhan Leela. Here Krishna, just in order to provoke Indra and in order to stop the worship of Indra, this is enough. So Krishna says, let's focus on our duty. Our duty is through the cattle and through Govardhan Hill, because this Govardhan Hill is what we are able to use for having the cattle to graze, and the Govardhan Hill provides all the minerals, all the herbs, all the plants, and it sustains our cattle, sustains our life, and these cows sustain us. And there are Brahmanas here who are invoking auspicious Vedas and having the right energy for us. So all we need to worship are these three, the cows, Govardhan and Brahmana. So why should we bother with worshipping some demigod who is only acting according to his nature? So Krishna says, Tasmat Gavam Brahmananam Adrescha Arabhyatam Makaha. So he says, let's simply worship these three. Whatever paraphernalia we have brought, all of this can be used instead for worshipping these who are right here now. We don't have to worship some unseen demigod. We can only worship our cows here who are sustaining us, the mountain Govardhan, which is sustaining us, and the Brahmanas who are invoking auspicious vibrations, positive vibrations through Vedic mantras. Because he says, we have no cities, we have no villages, all we possess is this cattle and this mountain here. Therefore, let's worship the cattle and the mountain. Let's make wonderful food, very beautiful, tasty prasad of various kinds, and let's offer it. Let's have beautiful fire, sacrificial fire, and have offerings by the Brahmanas who chant the holy Vedas, and let the food be distributed to everyone, even including dogs and all creatures. Let them all be given food, and let's supply the cows with grass that nourishes them, and let the mountain Govardhan be nourished with all the offerings, and let all of us decorate ourselves, dress well, and then go around the cows, go around the Brahmanas, go around the sacred fires, go around the mountain in the right way, circumambulate in the clockwise manner, and thereby please them, because they are the immediate source of our livelihood. He says, Pradakshinam cha kuruta go vipra anala parvatan. Go cow, vipra is Brahmanas, anala is the sacrificial fire, parvata is Govardhan. So let's simply go around these in the clockwise manner and offer our worship. This is my opinion, O Father. After that, it's up to you, he says. Etat mama matam tata kriyatam yadi rochate ayam go brahmana adrina mahyam cha daito makaha. So he says, O Father, this is my opinion, that the worship of cows, brahmanas, and the mountain would be dear to me. After that, it's up to you. So Krishna here, even though he is a young boy, he speaks with such authority and with such clarity that his father has no choice but to listen, because he can detect the wisdom of what Krishna says. Of course, as pointed out, Krishna has not revealed the full wisdom, which is that one has to surrender the results completely, because it's ordained by the supreme ordainer, the Ishvara, the one who wields the entire material energy, the power that rises forth from pure consciousness. But the other aspect of one focusing on one's own duty with clarity and not worshipping any partial demigods is very important and very valid, and that's what Krishna points to here. So hearing these words of Krishna, who is time itself and who has inwardly determined to crush Indra. So the whole purpose of this is to crush Indra's pride, because Indra is very proud that all these people are worshipping him, and therefore to crush Indra's pride he has stopped Nanda from doing this, and Nanda followed what Madhusudana, Krishna's another name Madhusudana. So what Madhusudana said, Krishna or Nanda followed that exactly as told by him. Therefore, Brahmanas were called. They chanted the Vedas, and then all kinds of preparations that were originally to be made for Indra were now all made, and they were all taken around Govardhana. So they had a beautiful procession where the Brahmanas chanted Vedas in the front, the cows were in the front, they had bullock carts, and the cattle wealth was going ahead of them, and behind them all the women came and all the men came. Krishna and all the boys were there, so all of them went around the mountain in a very auspicious way, circumambulating in a clockwise way with all these various articles of food. And then after that, Krishna very surprisingly took on a gigantic form suddenly, by which he said, I am the mountain Govardhana, and he started eating all that food. It says, Krishnastu Anyatamam Rupam Gopa Vishrambhanam Gataha Shailosmi iti Bruvan Bhuri Balim Adad Brihadvapuhu. Brihadvapuhu means he took on a huge form suddenly. So every once in a while, as we see in Bhagavatam in this 10th Skandha, Krishna reveals his divine potency to these gopis and gopas, and they instantly recognize him, but then they are also made to forget by Yogamaya so that they can treat him as their beloved. So here again there's another pastime now where Krishna reveals, he says, Shailosmi, he says, I am this mountain Govardhana, which is the truth in fact, and therefore he suddenly decides to take all this prasad and he starts eating that prasad, and everybody is shocked to see this boy suddenly becoming so big and being able to eat all this prasadam, and they are all now very happy, and now the procession continues. They are all singing the glories of Krishna. All the women are all singing and chanting Krishna's name and Krishna's pastimes, and now glorifying what just happened of Krishna eating everything. And in this way, along with the people of Krishna, along with the people of Vraja, that is, Krishna also offered his obeisances to Govardhana. So Krishna says we have to offer our obeisances to this mountain right here, because this mountain is what sustains us, and therefore everybody offered their obeisances to the mountain. And in this way, Krishna made this wonderful Govardhan puja happen. And this Govardhan puja that happened was as directed by Krishna and was therefore performed by all the inhabitants of Vrija in a very auspicious way. So this is the Govardhan puja that is even now done every year. But of course, this is going to incite Indra into anger and thereby show his ignorance, and his pride will be quelled and a beautiful Leela will be performed. So that will continue in the next chapter. So for now, Indra has been provoked with anger, while Krishna has stopped the sacrifice to Indra that was going on for many generations, as Nanda said. And with clear, deliberate reasoning, Krishna said there is no need to worship any demigod, and therefore he made it a wonderful festival of celebrating nature right then and there, of the cows and of the mountain Govardhana, honoring the Brahmanas and honoring all the people, distributing the food right there to everyone, including dogs, as it is said, every creature being fed well, and thereby starting a wonderful tradition which is rooted in celebrating that which sustains us. So this is how Govardhan Puja is done, and with this chapter ends. We will now see what Indra does in retaliation to this, and thereby the great Govardhan Leela, which will unfold in the next few chapters. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.